If you like this video, please rate, comment, share and subscribe, and if you dislike it, please tell me why so I can improve. Although this is on an ordinary camera, this is basically like a webcam video because I haven't got much time today, so I'm going to do that kind of thing. I wanted to talk today about stigmata. Stigmata are a phenomenon alleged where wounds appear on your arms and your feet, and sometimes around the crown of thorns area, as a mark of fellow feeling, empathy with Christ. And they bleed, they are painful. Sometimes there are no marks, but there's only the pain. And they tend to be associated with the Eucharist, in the sense that they come on during the Eucharist or they go away during the Eucharist. Now, that sounds quite far-fetched at first, but I want to present a case for why I don't think it is far-fetched and talk about a bit of my personal experience with respect to that. They're in a Roman Catholic context normally, not in Reformed churches, which I find quite interesting because I think the glossolalia only occurs in Reformed churches and not Roman Catholic churches, and there would be perhaps equal scepticism on both sides for those. The thing that makes me think that there is something naturalistic going on with these is that it's perfectly possible to feel sympathy pain for people. I get that all the time. Also, there are cases where people who are mentally ill have felt that their hands were tied and they actually got rope burns, as it were, on their hands. And the explanation for that is nothing to do with some supernatural influence on your hands or your wrists. It's to do with the fact that your mind has an influence on your body. So, for example, it's like an eczema flare-up or a psoriasis flare-up to do with stress. And those things seem to be entirely naturalistic to me. There's no need for them to be considered to be miraculous. Now, the way the Roman Catholic Church construes it is as miraculous. And they've done things like they've tried to analyse the blood, which isn't blood apparently. There are no red cells in it, red corpuscles. They've also said that it's factitious injuries. Now, the Catholic Church hasn't, but it has been claimed. And maybe sometimes it is factitious injuries. But it's interesting to look at the distribution of these experiences, because what you generally find is St. Francis was the first person who claimed to have had this in, I think, the 13th century. Later on, for quite some time, in medieval times, 4 out of 5 stigmatics were female. Later on, and also obviously not ordained because they were female and in the Roman Catholic Church, later on it's more like half and half, and the men are ordained. I don't know, I can't come up with an explanation for that second bit, but as far as the first bit is concerned, that strikes me as a way of spiritual expression which is frustrated by not being able to be ordained, that's only open to women, so the women get that, and that's a way of expressing themselves and achieving some kind of status perhaps in the church. I'm wary of the word status. One thing that some women have done is to pray for the wounds to be taken away but the pains to continue. Now, I'm going to say something now which is going to sound a bit mad. I haven't had the pain of stigmata, but one thing that has happened to me, and I'm just going to describe what happened, is that I have sometimes, after communion, without any particular emotional involvement actually, which I thought was very odd, I have had red marks here and here suddenly appear, and they were slightly painful but not very. There was no fluid from them, and they took a while to fade. And obviously I've got that as well, which is invisible now actually, because it's, well, never mind why it's invisible. I don't have any belief whatsoever that that was a miraculous event. What I think was, it was a psychosomatic thing that I imposed that on my body, and because of some connection which didn't seem particularly emotional, and that reminds me of IBS actually, I got the red marks, and that was a psychosomatic thing. And the reason it reminds me of IBS is that I spend a lot of time in the toilet sometimes when I'm stressed, or when I'm in a situation where I might expect to be stressed but don't actually feel emotionally stressed. And when I do feel emotionally stressed, I don't get that as much. And I think, don't worry about the spookiness or the possible supernaturalism of the idea of stigmata, because What they really are, I think, is purely a psychosomatic cutaneous eruption of some kind. Nothing at all to do with miracles, and oddly, nothing at all to do with the emotional consciousness of that kind of thing for some people. And the pain is just like sympathy pains or whatever, and those do happen, and it's just normal. It's not some weird thing. It's just what people's bodies do sometimes. I can feel a very slight pain in this wrist now, and so what? You know, that's just what people's bodies do. It's a psychosomatic thing. There's no need to freak out about it. So I'll see you tomorrow.